Welcome back, episode 52 of the Ground Up podcast.
Welcome aboard, Johnny Smith.
Jack did say you are the king of e-commerce.
Launched a Amazon account. Our best days, we do about 2,000 orders.
Averaging 250 deliveries an hour, which is pretty nuts.
We're going to do about 5 million in 2025 in revenue.
Supermarket companies that have the biggest revenues in the country, they're not the ones getting those sales. It's a small business owner that set out from his living room and has been trading for 5 years, is selling those 1,000 units.
Even Amazon retail have cancelled loads of their orders from China.
China.
Yeah, they're in a lot of trouble.
If Amazon shut their doors, there's going to be carnage.
If you're watching, I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore.
Jeff regularly tunes in. Hi, Jeff. We'll get you on later on down the line when you've grown your business a bit more.
Ground up sound, ooh, yeah. Real estate deals. We lay them down, let's get those deals. Deals, making money, baby.
Welcome back, episode 52 of the Ground Up podcast, but we're not going to make a big deal about it. It has been a year of the Ground Up podcast, but we don't have Stuart. Stuart's no longer with us because he's away in Miami. He's not dead. He'll be back next week, and then we'll celebrate it properly. Also, Dorian's not here, but that's usual for the morning. He comes up with some sort of excuse. Apparently, he had a late one. He's overslept, so he'll join us later. But we do have a guest coming today who's got doing over 500,000 a year and £5 million a year, 500,000 units. £5 million a year in FBA online Amazon sales, which we will come round to in more detail. And we're going to go through what it's like to sort of run that kind of online digital e-commerce business. There's quite a few people in the space who are making good money doing this, so we thought we'd dig in deep, ask some interesting questions, and also cover a few property bits as well. There's been some crazy moves in AI, some Portuguese company making £100 million in sales using AI bots, so we'll have a look at that. And just chinwag, chat shit like we usually do. If you're a new viewer, we are the Ground Up podcast. We are 4 property developers based in the UK doing £250 million in development pipeline. And every week we get around the mic, we chat shit about property, business, teams, staff, growing, all that fun stuff. So make sure you subscribe. Big love. We'll pass it around the room. Jack, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, good. Good. The weather's good. I feel like, have you heard like the summer theory in business that people spend more in the summer? So it tends to be a good time to go into like a sales pro to make sure that we'll come on to Johnny and see if he sees this from a consumer perspective, but from a B2B perspective, apparently people are buying at the moment, which is good. I'm all good. How are you, Ryan?
Yeah, man. I've had this weird... Oh, John, actually, one of my cats got fucking run over this week, which is pretty big. So it wasn't Zeus. Zeus is like my angel cat. Like, I would be devastated.
Zeus parts traffic.
Yeah. She's like, fucking wait for me. Whereas Stevie, he got twatted. And bless him. I found out whilst I was in London, though. So the vets had him. And then I got back and I was just too fucking busy to go get him. So he'd been at the vets for like 2-3 days in their refrigerator. And I was just like, fuck, I need to go get him. So yesterday I had a 2-hour gap between one sales call and another one. So I was like, right, I'm meant to go on a run, but I'll go pick him up, dig a hole in the garden and bury him properly. I've never buried an animal before. I've had animals that pass away. Usually the vets cremate them. And I was like digging this hole and I was like, I don't know about this. I feel fucking rough. And then just picking up my cat again, like, all right, in the hole and then burying him. And I was just like, Sonny was there and he was kind of just like stood behind me smoking. He was like, this is rough, man. This is rough. I was like, yeah, it's rough, mate.
Sorry to hear, mate. We're obviously like a dog, well, Johnny is as well, but we're a dog family, but we bury all of ours up like on this, well, which used to be our extended garden, but now is like a plot that remains in the family because it's next to the yard. So every time we take the dogs for a walk there, we say hello to all the dogs that are buried. It's like a dog sanctuary of buried dogs.
Yeah, mate. It's sad, man. It's sad, like, but like the burying bit makes it real. Like, I didn't, I love my cats, but I'm not like,
The biggest problem with pets, their life expectancy isn't as long as ours. So you need to get a pet where it is, like a tortoise or something. Parrot, they live for like 60 years.
Anyway, Johnny, you got any parrots? Any whales?
I was going to say it's a lovely way to start the podcast. Very upbeat topic. No parrots, no pets.
We start morbid here.
Yeah,
and think of the benefit of our listeners, Johnny is one of one of Jack's. You guys have been like best mates for years, right?
Yeah, so I'll give a bit of an intro for everyone's context. So thanks for coming on, Johnny, and for all the listeners' benefit out there. So obviously we're heavily property people. I know we've discussed a bit of Bitcoin investment, geopolitics and other bits, but we've got an opportunity today because Stu's away to bring on someone else that's in a slightly different sector, even though Johnny has some experience in property and we might come on to that. But welcome aboard Johnny Smith, who's a good friend of mine. Actually shared a house with him at uni. He had the pleasure of being my groomsman at my wedding. We've traveled the world together. We've certainly lived close and shared ideas and shared business tips and shared highs and lows through life and business. But I'd definitely say Johnny's cracked his sort of space in retail, which is very different and very, I suppose, well, it's basically a product market, and I only work in the service-based market or property market. And I'd say that Johnny's also very good at sort of integrating the tech side of things into business. So welcome on, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you for the lovely introduction, and thanks for having me, on, guys. Yeah, it's been 20 years, right? It's 20 years? No, about 15 years now we've known each other, isn't it? Oh, it's gone quick, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has gone quick. And yeah, I mean, obviously when we met, we were poor students, although you weren't slightly as poor because you had a business that you're already running, and we might come on to that. But to give everyone a bit of context and to bring it in, would you like to just sort of talk about where your current, your main business is at to date, how long you've been running it, how you've got it there, what you actually do? So, talk through like the business itself, and then hopefully that'll lead us into some interesting questions for the listeners to delve into.
And Johnny, I'll just bring up some slides quick for context. Here's a lovely shot of you both being friends.
Often, if we went away, just us two, people would think we're a gay couple.
It's very gay.
Yeah, it was very gay. I agree on that.
And then here's just for the viewers as well as a shot of Johnny's website for a little bit more context. Take it away, mate. Give us a lowdown.
Yeah, so I've had this business for 6 years now, and it's grown pretty rapidly. I've been sort of interested in business for probably 20 years, since I was 16. And when I was 16, I started flipping silk ties, so importing from China these silk ties and then selling on eBay. And I did that throughout university. So I remember that used to fund our late night Domino's purchases at university, and I remember just logging onto my PayPal account and we just order loads of pizzas. Obviously not the best business acumen back then, but I was 20. So
yeah, that's currency back then, though, isn't it? Just be able to buy your own takeaways, currency in uni, right?
Exactly. So yeah, started on the sort of eBay flipping journey. Then went, obviously I was at uni, got my degree, worked as a business development manager for my family business. And then about 6-7 years ago, I launched a Amazon account, and I started flipping from stuff like Home Bargains, and basically going through Home Bargains and scanning all the toys, and then seeing what the buy price from Home Bargains was, and then what the sell price from Amazon was, and then flipping that way. I progressed then to sort of online arbitrage, so going on stuff like Superdrug and Boots, seeing the price on those stores, and then going on Amazon and again flipping a little bit more scale. Then I went into sort of wholesale and working with brands. I went from sort of sending stuff in boxes to Amazon FBA to using a 3PL. Used a 3PL for 6 months, and then 4 years ago we opened up our first distribution warehouse, which is the same one we have now, which is a 3,000 square foot warehouse in Northamptonshire. And we've been growing sort of 50, 60, this year we grow 70% year on year. And we're going to do about 5 million in 2025 in revenue. And it's good. We've got a team of about just under 20 people. So in the warehouse we have 11 staff, and then on the back end in the Philippines we have 6 or 7 staff members. So fully remote back end team. The front end is all on the warehouse, and I can go into a lot of detail on all those if you want.
Banging. And name of the business is Beyond the Buy Box, yeah?
So Beyond the Buy Box is my training business. So I have a training business as well, which is actually just ran by myself right now. And that's been running for sort of 2 to 3 years. And we just sort of sell. We're going to teach Amazon sellers sort of wholesale, how to run the business. And my main business is a food retail. So we specialize in importing stuff from around the world. So importing containers from America and then selling that in the UK. But our niche is grocery and sort of stuff you can't really get in Sainsbury's. That's sort of our sort of idea.
Johnny, I've got a good stat for you. I've just actually worked out. So you said 5 million turnover, your average product price is £10, which if you break that down, because I know that you currently operate your warehouse unit in working hours, because we've discussed about up valuing that to like weekends and evening, maybe an evening team, but you're averaging 250 deliveries an hour is to hit your revenue target, which is pretty nuts.
So our best days, we do about 2,000 orders from the warehouse. And just to tell you a little bit about my business, it's not fully Amazon FBA. So we sell on TikTok, eBay, Shopify. We've got Amazon FBA, and then we have Amazon Seller Fulfilled Prime. So what does that mean is that we do next day delivery from our warehouse. What we use Amazon FBA for is actually to leverage their storage space, right? Because I've got a 3,000 square foot warehouse. For actually us to scale further, we can send goods into Amazon FBA, and then they can take care of the shipping. And that's how a lot of people start off. They just do FBA because it's very hands-off. All you got to do is send the goods into Amazon, and then you can sort of sit back and let Amazon do all the customer service and the fulfillment and prep and all that. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, for a bit more context as well, a friend of mine who actually watches this podcast as well, he loves the pod. He got a very similar business doing like diaries and notebooks. And I was like, how the fuck do you make money selling diaries and notebooks in the modern day where you've got iPhones and shit like that and people use apps? And it's crazy the volume he's doing as well. I think he's doing, I don't know, something like 100,000 diaries a year or something. And he's scaling it up. And he said about his bottlenecks as well. And he's looking for a warehouse right now, I believe. I think he leases, like shares one, but he's trying to get their own one. And I find that quite interesting because I'm like, so, okay, where's the benefit in getting your own warehouse when you can just sort of rent from Amazon and things like that? So why do that? Why take on that kind of infrastructure and that overhead?
So the brilliant thing about the UK is that you can reach the entire audience, all your customers next day delivery, right? The problem about America and having Seller Fulfilled Prime is you can only reach a certain area. So that's why in America everyone loves FBA, because Amazon FBA is such good fulfillment networks. They can provide next day delivery. But the advantage in the UK is that you can compete with Amazon FBA on delivery time. So if you can do next day delivery with the Prime badge, you can compete with all those FBA offers. It's definitely hard, and there's definitely arguments against having a warehouse, obviously having your own staff and all the complications of having UK staff is a lot. You've obviously got to build up the warehouse team of having a warehouse manager, stock controller, warehouse team leader, and all these sort of overheads. So it is complicated. But for our business, why it's worked so well, and I think why we have an edge is because people just don't want to start their own warehouse, is that the stock can come in. It can be on sale pretty much in 20 minutes once it's booked in. And then it goes out to like 20 channels, right? So the brilliant thing about Seller Fulfilled Prime is, say I have a product like this, which is this hot sauce. I can then list this as a 2-pack, 3-pack, 6-pack, single. I can mix this with like different flavors, and I can put this out to like 4 different channels, right? So I can, from my warehouse, it goes out to TikTok, Shopify, Amazon, eBay. On Amazon, it can go out to like 20 different listings. Because if you search this brand on Amazon, like 20 different listings might come up, right? I can be on all of them. With Amazon FBA, once you send this product into FBA, it's tied to one listing, right? So you lose that sort of exposure to the entire marketplace and the other marketplace and international and everything like that. So that's definitely the benefit of having a warehouse. You can spread your customer base. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, you can spread your product range. It's the same product, but you can split it into different quantities, right? Which is, I'm guessing, just better for variety.
So you could have 10 of these, but then 10 will be fed to all your different listings across all 4 channels. So again, like you have lots of different opportunities to sell that product. If you send to FBA, you're just tied to one, right? So you're losing all those other channels. I think the reason, we've been able to scale pretty quick is with Seller Fulfilled Prime, you can turn your money over a lot quicker, right? Because as soon as you receive it in the warehouse, it's up for sale. And then tie that in with sort of 60-day Amex credit terms. And our average stock turnaround is about 28 days. You're basically getting your money back before you've had to pay for the stock, right? So it's sort of like an unlimited cash fund if you actually do it right. But it's obviously very hard to get to that stage, but it's obviously very possible. I actually think Amazon's the biggest opportunity right now for a lot of people who want to, get going in the entrepreneurship world. Yeah.
Yeah, massive, mate, especially as consumerism is kind of on the rise in it. But the construction can be kind of the same sometimes, where you can get it to a point of scale where you can use an Amex, supplier accounts, and end up being like nicely cash in hand for a while. You must have a crazy revenue per overhead then, I'm guessing. If you do 5 million a year, what's your team look like?
Yeah, well, okay, so we have 10, 11 people in the warehouse. So we have a warehouse manager, 2 stock controllers, and then 6 packers and 2 pickers. So around 10, 11. That's probably one more than we actually need for now, but it's nice to have that extra layer of staff.
Sounds like something off Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, having 2 packers and 2 pickers.
Yeah. And then in the back end team, and we're still a very lean operation, and we have 3 sort of sourcing / admin staff. And then we have 2 part-time sort of ad specialists and social media managers who run our Shopify store. And then we have a bookkeeper. So actually we have 16, 17. So the overhead per staff is like 400,000. It's quite a lot. So, but it's the labor cost obviously in abroad is going to be cheaper than the UK by a substantial amount.
Yeah, we might come back to that. Can you give us an example of your like product? You showed some hot sauce there, but your product range is like typically what you sell. Just like list off like 5 examples.
Okay, so stuff like Lucky Charms, that was big before like HFSS. Stuff like what else? We have like ABC kebab mayonnaise sauce. The Tajin spice,
Food sources, food basically.
Yeah, like different noodles. So we're like authorized with like Samyang. Do you guys know Samyang noodles? So they're the biggest noodle company in the world.
I feel like I've seen the logo before. Yeah,
they do the pink noodles and sell at the carbonara flavor Samyang, but they're one of the biggest listings on TikTok. So TikTok users love those Samyang carbonara noodles. We have probably like 3,000-4,000 different products. So I could be here all day naming the brands.
No, just to give us a flavour, pun intended.
Do you sell any XP survey hats? Good morning, by the way. Sorry about as the guys probably attest to. Not that I struggle to keep track of time or anything. It's just there's so much fucking happening that I blink and an hour's gone and I'm late for everything. But we got a completion happening, so that's what I was just dealing with then as I joined. But I caught a glimpse of what you was talking about there. So Jack did say you are the king of e-commerce, so I was very interested to hear your story and what it is that you do, and extract all of your knowledgeable tips so we can do it ourselves.
Yeah. So we're definitely getting there. So I think we're ranked about 200 on like top Amazon sellers.
Because of your products there, do you track like your average sales price per unit? Do you, like what is that? What type of range are you in?
Because it's grocery, we're about £11. But there's a reason we keep to sort of £10-11 is on Amazon. There's different referral rate, different payments. Whatever it's called. It's early. Sorry. Different sort of referral rates that you play. So for grocery under £10, you're paying 8.5% to Amazon. Over £10, you're paying 15% to Amazon. So sort of the sweet spot to on grocery is sort of like 9-10 quid, because you can sell it for 10 quid, but you only pay 8.5% fees to Amazon. So that's probably why a lot of our average selling price is around £11. Because obviously we have the Shopify, which is like the multi-line orders, which brings that average order value up. Yeah. So I think, yeah, £11.
Volume then, a lot of volume.
So that's again, I think the edge we have is we do a lot of volume. Just from the warehouse, like B2C, we do about 5,000 orders a week. So that would usually be something like 2,000 orders on a Monday, and then like 800 to 1,000 orders for the rest of the week. And then we have all our orders from Amazon FBA as well. So we try and keep all our SKUs in stock in Amazon FBA, and keep all our SKUs in stock at the warehouse as well. So that's sort of the challenge, is the admin overhead of keeping everything in stock, like constant purchase orders to suppliers. I can go on forever tracking like lead times and stuff like that. That's just
What does your marketing look like, Johnny? Like marketing ads.
so I say, as like an entrepreneur, my downside right now is marketing. The reason for that is that Amazon bring the marketing. It's such a big platform that they do it for you for the marketing. You can use obviously Amazon ads and pay for sort of keywords and stuff like that, but it's obviously it's different sort of traditional businesses. So our marketing for our Shopify store is mostly through Google, because obviously Google Shopping is the top one. So you're gonna give a lot of that money to the boys at Google. Facebook ads hasn't given that much of a good ROAS, really, compared to sort of Google. Google and email marketing is king. So email marketing for those repeat purchases and increasing the lifetime value, and then Google ads for sort of acquiring new customers for our Shopify store.
Do you know what your blended CAC is across those different channels? Your cost to acquire a customer?
It's usually about 5-6 quid.
5-6 quid. And what's the lifetime value of a typical buyer of yours?
It's not that much, unfortunately, because we sell unique stuff that people are like, oh, that's sort of Tajin spice. They just want it for like a Mexican party. So our lifetime, it's usually about 25 quid, and our average order value is about 20. So it's only a little bit higher, unfortunately, because the problem with Shopify and where we struggle is there's so much competition in the UK, which is brilliant for us as consumers, because grocery prices are very cheap in the UK, probably one of the cheapest in Europe, because you have all that competition from Ocado, Sainsbury's, Tesco's, Morrison's, and all that, where there's a lot of price competition. Like there's Aldi price matching, Co-op price matching now. So a lot of people who are going to have repeat purchases will do it through there, because they can get their sort of weekly groceries. For us, it's like just a one-off. So we do obviously have repeat customers, but it's Shopify stuff that the one we haven't cracked the code yet. We're doing about 400,000 a year on Shopify.
So can you build as like Amazon FBA? Is that what you call yourself? Like do Amazon or Amazon merchant? Or
I would call myself a food retailer, an online food retailer, or I'd say I was in the e-commerce world, because we're on 5 different channels, because we have Amazon FBA and then we have Amazon Merchant. We're on 5 different channels, so
you're like kind of restricted to Amazon's distribution, right? Like if Amazon turned off its distribution tomorrow, does that completely fuck you? Or are you diversified in other silos of marketing and channels to market as well?
So if Amazon's distribution, I mean, the world that would be a big problem.
It's like that too big to fail type of state as they are now, aren't they? They're if Amazon shut their doors, there's going to be carnage.
As long as the marketplace is still open, that would actually be a huge benefit for us, right? If they shut down distribution, we'll profit off that a lot, because we have an alternative distribution method, and we can do Prime from our warehouse. So during COVID times, where the fulfillment centers were saying you can't send any more in, all the volume moved to the sort of seller fulfilled Prime sellers and the merchant fulfilled sellers, because they could offer that next day, where Amazon were just over capacity and they couldn't. So that's why the key to this game really in the long run is diversification, because if you have all your eggs in the Amazon FBA basket, you send all your stock over there, then you're sort of definitely setting up yourself for a risk. But we actually only have about 15% of our stock value in Amazon FBA. So
what would you say then? So you said, I think you admitted that marketing's maybe not one of your strong points, something you want to work on. Then how the fuck have you managed to grow this thing 70% year on year? How are you growing if marketing's not the thing that you're good at? If you're growing at a good rate, one would assume you're good at marketing. But Is there a different strategy to grow your type of business?
So the marketing is really only affecting Shopify, right? Because you have to bring your own traffic. Amazon gets you the traffic, which is why it's such a noob-friendly business, really. Because anyone can sell on Amazon because the traffic is there. I think bringing in traffic is one of the hardest things to do as a business owner, right? Is getting that traffic. Even as you have training businesses and I have a training business, getting that traffic. It's all about sales.
Without sales, you've got no business.
Exactly. So, I mean, I'm okay at marketing, but it's not my strong point. So my strong point is definitely building systems. We have like custom software. I think just my ability to sort of think differently to a lot of people is what got us to the next step. And I think if we're going to talk about scaling, then really what it comes down to is increasing our weekly spend on the right stock, right? So when you first start, you might spend 100 quid a week, buy that stock, and then send Amazon FBA. All you're doing is basically increasing that weekly spend, and then having the infrastructure to be able to support that spend. So that's really how, in simple terms, how you scale the business. You just buy more stock. It's that simple, but buy the right stock and then have the right infrastructure to support that growth. So on the infrastructure side, it's all about having the right team, right? Or if you're not using your own warehouse, the right 3PL or right sort of systems to pack back at home to receive, prep, and ship that stock to either the customer or Amazon. So I think for me, it's just I think I'm very good at systems. And
let's talk about those. Let's talk about like the AI integration and systems and how, because I all of my memories of you is almost like you're obviously don't take this out of context, but it's almost like your act for laziness benefits you, because you just be like, I can't be bothered to do that again. I'm going to put a system in place so that tech does it for me and then it's done. So let's talk about that, because I definitely think that's probably one of your major like competitive advantage points of just being like systems driven and tech driven. So give us a bit of context of what that looks like. So what operations you've got in place that's tech driven, and maybe how that saved you having to bring staff in or even manage the business yourself.
Yeah. So I was rubbish in school, and even at university, I don't think I showed up. I was just too busy partying and just messing around with Jack and everyone else. But I have, I can focus on things quite well. So like coding and systems, and like back in the day, like gaming, I could do that for like 24 hours straight. So it's just really like finding things that I love to do, and then I can put all the hours. I get addicted to things. And that's sort of, we're going like the traits of having like ADHD and dyslexia, is that I can really narrow focus on one thing. But I think a really good example for like a system that I've recently done, which incorporates AI, is that we used to have a in-house recruiter to hire like our VAs and UK staff, but I actually got rid of her because I basically changed the way we vet our staff, people who are applying for the jobs. So what I do was send them a link to our website, like the careers page of our website. They will fill out a form, upload a PDF, answer like checkbox questions. And then what I built was a sort of AI sort of vetter who would then take all that information, read the PDF, look at the checkboxes. It will obviously reject the application if some of the checkboxes weren't ticked. And it will also return us a score for that PDF, right? So how it worked is that the person would apply for the job. The AI would then analyze the PDF. It will then give a score and send a Slack message to our recruiter channel on Slack saying this applicant has 7 out of 10. And then from there, what it's going to do, if it passes that application, it's then going to send them a automated test. So then they have to do the test, which is another link on our website. And then again, once they've completed that test, it's then going to return another link to Slack, and then the AI will say if it's completed that test or not. So basically, you've done the testing, you've done the vetting, looking through the CVs. So basically, 80% of a job of a recruiter you've minimized. And obviously with VAs, I don't know if you guys hire in the Philippines, you get so many applications and a lot of it is junk. So vetting through that initial junk stage by using AI to interpret and to look at their PDF, their CV, is a really good way to sort of, again, cut out a whole staff member's wage. And all you have to really do then is just have, you're interviewing someone who's completed the test and you're interviewing someone who's been vetted fully. So that's sort of like an example of a system where I've looked at something, I've realized, geez, she's spending all day looking through these CVs. It just seems like, why are we doing that when we can get AI to sort of look at the CV?
It's quite funny what you've just explained there. I would call a qualification funnel, and we use that for our sales. Same sort of thing. We use an AI bot that like pushes the lead through a sequence of videos and then a form, and then like things they have to fill out, or their call just gets cancelled to a point to do that pre-qual, because we had so much time wasted with like, this and that person saying this, saying that, but they're really full of shit, and just actually using AI and using like videos and leveraging that as a qualification funnel. Just you end up with less on the back end, but much higher quality. And then it's better spending your time on the quality, right? And you can do that with any business, I think. Any business could operate that kind of funnel.
Because I think a lot of people will upload the PDF to ChatGPT anyway and say, hey, what do you think of this candidate? And if you're not doing that, you should be doing that. And, after this call, I might put this transcript into AI and be like, hey, what summarize this interview? Like, I think everyone should be doing that and using AI as a sort of chatbot to sort of learn things and summarize data. We've just took it a step further, and we've automated that process of the user taking that PDF, going on ChatGPT, uploading that PDF and getting a result back, and obviously repeating the prompt over and over again. Obviously, by using the API, you can pre-fill that prompt in to train the AI bot so it knows exactly what it's looking for. And obviously, you can change the prompt for each different job. But hopefully that's something that everyone else can sort of take on board. I know there's solutions like Soho have like some AI stuff, but you're paying a lot of money and you can't link that to your own website. So,
and what about, can you share more details about like stock control and buying, stock management, stuff going out the door? Because I know that's heavily integrated at your end.
Yeah, I think this is again where we have a bit of an edge. We have custom software to create purchase orders and do all the forecasting. So, I was saying this product here can go out to sort of like 20 different listings on 4 different marketplaces. If you had that as a manual process, that's going to be really hard to forecast and be like, oh, and that listing over there, you need 20. The other listings, you need 100, but it's a 2-pack. So you need, obviously, if you count those up, it'd be 220. So my system basically aggregates all the different channels, like all the different forecastings from all the different listings, and sort of aggregates it together and sort of tells you exactly how much to order. So my team can sort of create a purchase order in like 20 seconds by just obviously adding the recommended quantities. And we've been refining that for about 6 years, that system. And basically how it works with the sort of purchasing is that we have a dashboard with all our suppliers. We have a column that shows the minimum order quantity. So say the minimum order quantity value is something like 750 quid. As soon as the reorder value gets to close to 750, my team is then creating a purchase order. So we're ordering very quickly, a lot, as soon as it reaches the MOQ, right? That's the key. And that's where a lot of sellers actually go wrong, is they don't do that. Actually, 99% of sellers don't even create purchase orders. And I think, again, that's like our edge, because I think even with the sort of best businesses in the Amazon space, they're not doing it as good as we are. But something like having a system like that where you can just buy like that.
From a business, like from a financial point of view on that, because now that's a great system, and it's talking about some of the fundamental working capital elements of running a business, which is stock and creditors. And obviously, when you sell on Amazon, you'll get paid. I don't know what. Can you just quickly talk through roughly how your like working capital cycle starts? So do you get payment terms from your suppliers, or do you have to pay them up front? Do you then roughly how long does it take for you to turn your stock around, and do you track that? And also, how long does it take you to get paid, even though they pay from Amazon? How long does it take for Amazon to actually pay you?
So with payment, so we're doing mostly in wholesale. The beauty of working with wholesalers is actually if you call up, the majority of them will accept Amex or a credit card. With American Express, it gives you, what's it, sort of 60 to 90 days of terms.
I think up to 56 interest free, but obviously if you're going to pay the interest longer, yeah.
Yeah, so I say 56 to 86 because if you spend stock on the first start of that repayment, then you can sort of gives you more days. Hopefully that makes sense. So you have credit cards, Amex, which are pretty much unlimited, which you can buy from wholesalers. So that gives you sort of 56 days. With other brands and stuff like that, sometimes you might have to pay pro forma, but obviously your cash flow won't be good. Sometimes they give you 30 days terms, sometimes they give you 60-day terms. So with actual sort of how the stock turnover, usually our average we aim for is 28 days of stock. So that usually gives you a nice little buffer of about 30 days that you've sold through that stock and then be able to pay off that credit card. With Amazon, they pay you out after delivery date, 10 days. So once it's delivered plus 10 days, so that usually works out 12, 13 days until you can request that cash. A lot of the older accounts, actually, the grandfathered accounts from 8-9 years ago can get that instantly. And actually in the news last year, that was a big news story that Amazon were getting rid of that instant payout and they were going to hold it on for the delivery date plus 10-day terms. So Amazon's a bit rubbish, but Shopify, obviously, you can get that pretty much instantly. So as soon as I sell it on Shopify, I get it instantly. TikTok, we're on the fast recycle, so we get that in I can't remember exactly, but it's 3-4 days. We get our money, so we sell on TikTok, we get that 3-4 days. eBay, I think it's also next day or the day after. I can't remember exactly, but it's pretty much instant as well. So if you're only buying 28 days of stock and you're selling through a lot of that, and getting the cash back in a couple of days, and you're getting terms of 56 days from Amex, you can pretty much do that on repeat.
Yeah, no, that is the key crux for the ability to keep on top of high growth in that type of business. Is if your underlying working capital cycle is positive, and it's good that you really know your days because and for the different platforms because you'll know. If you're working with certain suppliers and it's all coming from Amazon, there's a risk that obviously your cycle starts turning negative, which obviously you're very much aware of, and keeping it positive or neutral is how you can carry on with 100% plus growth year on year without actually needing to raise capital. So do you mind me asking if you've, in terms of your cap structure for your business, is it just yourself, or have you had to raise money, or have you been scaling through working capital?
Yeah, it's all bootstrapped, all working capital. It's just myself, 100% equity. I got very lucky. I admit I got lucky. I started pre-COVID, and I was able to get the bounce back loan of 50K. I think that boosted a lot of businesses with that sort of 0% interest and 2.5% terms. I think we still have maybe 20K left of it.
I was going to say, have you ever brought yourself to pay it off, or are you just servicing it? Because we took a bounce. Yeah, we took one. And every time we have enough money to pay it off, I'm like, yeah, but I want to exchange on that over there. It's
Just to delve down on that for the listeners, what we're talking about payment cycles there is actually quite rare that in a small growing business, you benefit from that cash flow positive process. So, as Johnny said, a good opportunity for entrepreneurs to go into. And the reason that it's normally not favorable to small businesses is because bigger businesses that have a monopoly or so much business coming to them. So for an example that myself and Dorian and Ryan can use is like Jewson's builders merchants or whatever it may be, because they're so much larger than us, they kind of pull their own terms, and we're the little players that are fighting in a smaller market to try and prove ourselves to get to the point where we've got passive business and we're then a bigger stance. So it's very rare that you move into a positive cash flow cycle as a smaller business, because normally you're buying from suppliers who are larger, who can actually call the shots, and you call them up and go, we want to change this from 12 days to 18 days. And they go, yep, good luck. See you later on. Nice working with you. Bang, phone down. And you've got to work with someone else.
Importantly as well, anyone listening to this, because obviously the viewers are it's going to be the in property or aspiring business owners. the understanding, whatever business you go into, you should really be knowing your working capital cycle exactly like you do there with your terms, which is because I give you on the flip side, as a property developer, the working capital cycle as a property developer looks like this. Your creditor days could literally be, as Jack said there, whatever terms they give you. It might even be on pro forma. It might be on 30 days. And let's just say you're lucky because you've got a construction trading company background. If you're starting up, you've got no history, so there's no terms. But let's just say you're lucky and you've got 30 days plus end of month. That's your credit days. Your stock days as a developer is like 2 years, right? So straight away you're in a fundamental red. And then your debtor days are at the very end of the job plus 6 months. So you're so negative that the only way to be a developer is that you either have cash, which you park it, or you have to raise millions and millions, which both myself, Jack, and Ryan do, because we're plugging that negative cycle. So on the flip side, when you hear of businesses scaling in a positive cycle, it always makes me smile, because I always sit there and think, oh, that sounds bliss, doesn't it?
There is another way though, and that's what we do. We run both models, so we get paid up front. So we always have a positive working capital cycle on clients' jobs because they're paying us up front in advance for each stage. And then with the construction aspect, on one side we are in weekly arrears, and there is an element there where we can fall short. But on the other side, on the buy-to-let side that we've just built, it's half payment up front. So
yeah, but you are still raising significant sums of money and PGing it to do acquisitions and dev finance.
There's two sides of it, because if it's the client's site, which is say maybe 70 to 80% of our business is client owned, we take a fee, then we don't take on any debt or anything like that. We're essentially getting cash funded. Then there's the other side that drains all of that cash flow. So without this side, that's very difficult. And we talk about this loads on the podcast, Johnny, and I'm sure you'd appreciate this from what you're doing now. Being a developer, if you don't have a cash flowing vehicle near you, or like really bespoke, unique payments in the way you structure sales, which I think Dorian has, you can have a real difficult time. Like, it takes one job and it will suck everything, all the life out of you.
I mean, I absolutely crave those businesses where you buy stock, you sell, you trade for the day. You know, like for an example, a mutual friend of Johnny and ours runs a little catering van on the West Coast, and he'll buy his stock, he'll trade for that day, and he'll probably make 600 quid that day. And then he'll do the same the next day, and then he'll do the same the next day. And every day he's made £600 net profit. Whereas we're in a business where I might go 3 years in our development company where we're just trading for the future, and you actually don't really make your margin until that 3 years is up. And by the way, you're going to sprinkle in loads of other projects in between that. And even our surveying company is a lot slower than that. You know, it's like monthly reviews. We're now making decent money, but it's difficult. And that's where I'm kind of jealous of the retail space a little bit, because you guys can buy stock and turn it around and sell it, and in 28 days you're like, you look at the bank balance, right, let's go again.
Is it like, Johnny, would you agree with this? To me, the idea of being a bricks and mortar retailer is like, that's a brutal business. But you're doing it digitally the way you're doing it, lean team, fulfillment, and you've got the payment terms in the way you've got them. You don't have those overheads of bricks and mortar. You're in the same industry, operating by the same kind of rules everyone else is, but with a way more effective distribution, purchasing channel, customer acquisition channel. Like, how different is it from retail high street bricks and mortar? What's the cons and pros of having and not having that, and what you're doing? What's the kind of, how do you distinguish those two?
I don't think bricks and mortar, obviously we're not talking about Sainsbury's, but we're talking about a corner shop, doesn't have enough revenue to hire that sort of upper management or that sort of warehouse manager or stock controller, like to dilute those sort of overheads. So what usually happens is that they're all sort of family owned, and then they go and work in the business. The beauty of us is because we obviously sell online, we can do so many orders that we can hire in that sort of warehouse management and stock control. So for me as a business owner, I can delegate having to go into the warehouse, and why I've been able to travel the world for the last sort of 3 years is because we have enough volume and revenue to pay for those sort of things. So I think smaller bricks and mortar are just harder because you're dealing with a lot less sales. where it's harder to sort of scale. I don't know. I don't know really many models that aren't sort of where the family members have to go back, especially now with utilities going up and how much staff costing is now. It's just gone crazy. So
I suppose that the retailers that make it work have brand, right? Like Gucci, Prada, Urban Outfitters.
I mean, if you look using that example of bricks and mortar versus digital, Gymshark is one of the fastest growing clothing retailers in the world, and they got that title before they set up any bricks and mortar. Their first store opening was Regent Street in London, and they were like the last player to do there. That they did it the opposite way around. They did that just as a statement and a HQ, really.
If you look at the other side, B&M Bargains, B&M Retail, they I know I'm going to say something now that may not be correct, but because I listened to the founder and a talk and found it fascinating, and they actually chose to just stay bricks and mortar and not go into online retailing. They lost money when they went into online retailing, and obviously I'm just doing this now from memory of the talk, but their business model really interesting. Again, he was talking about the working capital cycle of how they got terms and they turned around the stock, and they basically attracted customers making a penny on branded items like Heinz ketchup, but when they came into the store, their like unbranded or lower brand stuff or other stuff had really high margin in, and that's what they were doing to attract. And their cash conversion was so strong, they actually combined it with a property strategy where they would go and actually buy the store that they wanted to go to. They would put themselves on a 25-year lease, no break, and they would flip that store on an investment basis instead, turn out tons of cash from doing that, and also use that as a lever for growth. And they have over 1,000 stores, including their subsidiary brand. I think the turnover was about 5 billion, and the profit per store is about 430 grand a year is the profit per store per thing. I find it all quite fascinating. But the profit per store is 400 grand, but the cash generated per store on an annual basis is 800 grand. So they double the amount of cash they generate than actually profit they generate.
But surely that business model is basically scale the bricks and mortar and sell the investment value at scale. And that lease and sales of those is only valuable if you've got a positive covenant in the building, which is their own group and business. So surely that like business model is like the definition of go big or go home. Like it's like, it doesn't take a lot for everything to unfold. The cash flow business fucks up, and then all of the investment units can't be sold anymore. Maybe it should have been called B&H.
Yeah. I think it all comes down to sort of competition, right? So if you have an Amazon listing and you sell Monster Zero, there's just going to be one listing. And if B&M lists on that Monster Zero 12-pack listing and I list on that Monster 12-pack listing and are at the same price, we're going to share the sales for that, right? But if you have a B&M in the town center and then you have the corner shop, more people are going to go into that B&M because of sort of repetition. But the things about Amazon and selling on these marketplaces, that brands don't matter. No one cares who the third party seller is. And that's the big differentiator, is that anyone can compete with the big boys as long as they're on that listing and they're buying at the right price. You know, like it must be so hard for a corner shop because, you know, I always buy like a Monster Zero from a corner shop. That's my go-to. But how many places in like a town center do you think you could buy a Monster Zero? 50 shops, maybe?
Yeah.
One little town of buying this Monster Zero, they can buy it from 50 different places, where on Amazon it's just this one listing. Of course, like bricks and mortar have like 80 to 90% of the total retail sales. But in the UK, you have such tremendous, like ridiculous competition with that sort of marketplace. I wouldn't even go down that route unless I was sort of a drug dealer and hiding my money, which is what a lot of the American food shops do, apparently. And
you go on Oxford Street and you see all these sweet shops everywhere, and no one's fucking in them. And it's just like, go on there, dudes. What's going on there? Like, and, okay, quick one for you then, Johnny, because I'm quite tied. I watch a lot in the marketing and media space and the changing of distribution and stuff online. And one of the big emerging distribution channels at the moment seems to be live TikTok sales, particularly on clothing and things like that. You've got these like Chinese girls who will go on there live promoting these new product launches, and there's this girl that sold 8 million quid in 2 seconds. 2 seconds. She literally went, and we're live, and we're sold out. 8 million of stock just gone.
I don't really think that's her sales skills, though. I think that's.
Oh no. No, it is though. It is though. Actually, I'll give her credit.
Was she selling a lovely 2-pack?
Not quite. She was. So what's happened here is these guys they're basically social media influencers. They've just over time built up these brands on live TikTok where they'll go through like new products. You know how girls like watching other girls do makeup and other girls do these products and stuff, and they'll literally religiously buy into the girls they like watching do makeup and things like that. And it's kind of the same for these sellers on live TikTok shop. And they go live, and because they've got this following, they can have hundreds of thousands of people watch them live for a new product launch. And it can be crazy, the volumes they'll do and the speed they'll do it. And it's like an emerging market for buyers to go, cool, I want to go buy this new thing that's coming out. I don't think you're necessarily in new kind of high-end goods though, are you? You're in like sort of the volume game of useful utility goods that gives you like a lot of breadth, right?
Yeah. I think for TikTok, we just have 1 or 2 products that work really well. So that's how it's not really spread across.
They're
I feel like-
passive, right? They're just on the store all the time. You're not doing like a launch or like a promotional thing.
No, yeah, exactly. And I think with TikTok, it's just a few of the products have all the volume. That's sort of how it works. So we have some products like Golden Graham's cereal, which we sold 1,000 units of over a weekend on TikTok. So you do get those sort of crazy spikes, and that was without any marketing or any lives.
That's crazy. What you've just said is crazy. Like, isn't that crazy? That we live in a world where you can just like you stick a cereal shop or stick a cereal product on social media, you sell 1,000 units over a weekend. You don't need a bricks and mortar store or a merchant or a fucking cashier or anything like that.
And what's also crazy is if you look at like, I know this is completely outrageous, but if you look at like supermarket companies that have the biggest revenues in the country, like Sainsbury's, Tesco's, they're not the ones getting those sales. It's a small business owner that's set out from his living room and has been trading for 5 years is selling those 1,000 units. So it's just such an open play market at the moment, which makes it, and TikTok's kind of amplified that again because it's the largest used platform that they've got to pivot and move into, which they obviously, I haven't seen. Do any like major retailers, Johnny, sell on either Amazon or either any social media platform?
Yeah, so like Lidl were just on TikTok. I don't know if you saw those launches where they just released their own version of Dubai chocolate on TikTok, and then they sold out. They've done it twice. I think they sold out in 10 minutes on both of those sales. But I think they're not on these sort of e-commerce channels is because, again, bricks and mortar is the majority of the volume. So they're going to just focus on where the majority of the volume is. Yeah.
It's fundamental structure as well, isn't it? Like you're structured in such an efficient and lean way. If you're going to go into bricks and mortar, you end up with it is quite people heavy that your cost to deliver that product. And because of this average sales price and the gross margin percentage and the amount of money left over to cover fixed costs, it is just not enough if you've got that level of overhead, basically. So I've got a few quick fire questions, Johnny, for you if you want. I could probably ask you like 100 questions, but it's I might have missed the beginning. So if you've covered any of these, just say it because I obviously don't want you to repeat yourself. So when you decided to start up this business and scale it, what was that first like product or the first thing that you tried to sell to think, I could do this or I could make money in this?
The first product wasn't actually properly legal on Amazon, as in it was probably against terms. So basically, the first product that I sort of got that first sort of adrenaline buzz was I imported Joe Bose headsets, the sort of HC35 or whatever they're called. I imported the replacement earbuds. And then I listed on someone else's private label listing, which is completely wrong. And you shouldn't be doing this. And I started selling like 100 units a month and selling them for like £12 and buying them from China for like £1. I was like, oh, Jesus, like this is just addictive. Then after that, I sort of did a few car boot flips, which again is a little bit because you can't prove the chain of authorization. Like I don't recommend these sort of ways, but just obviously this is 6-7 years ago and me starting up with the sort of flipping. Then I went on to sort of home bargains, and I would sort of sell toys like Spider-Man walkie-talkies. But I actually then got suspended from Amazon for 3 months 6 years ago, because this Spider-Man walkie-talkie I was buying from Home Bargains, on the Home Bargains receipt, it just said Spider-Man walkie-talkie and had no sort of UPC, or sort of didn't really match up with the actual product. So when I got banned, I was like, actually, I need to then go into wholesale, and I think an online arbitrage. And then the thing that really took off for us is Fortin's Easter eggs. So from Fortin's, you used to be able to buy it'd be like buy 5 and get it for £5 each, right? And then you used to put you get cash back from that, which would be 10%. I think another 10% as well. So you'd be buying these Easter eggs for about £3-4. And then you could sell them on Amazon for like $9.99. These Fortin's Easter eggs. And just over that Easter period, I was sending I was receiving boxes and boxes of Fortin's Easter eggs into our living room, and then sending it all off to Amazon. And it was just all selling and selling and selling.
Keep the heating on low then.
Got the heating on low. Lucky it was Easter, so it wasn't too hot yet. Also, I put on a lower weight, and I haven't really got off the weight since then.
Nice.
Thailand being 80 kilograms to now sort of mid-90s. I've just never been able to shake off that Easter egg weight. But those sort of revelations of whoa, I can just sort of send in something that anyone can buy from fortins.com or .co.uk, send it to Amazon FBA, and I can just sit back and make $1,000 a week. I was like, oh, this is really good. And then I just started taking it more seriously and started working with wholesalers and brands directly. Started building the systems, and here we are today, doing it legitimately. If you're watching, I'm not doing any of that stuff anymore.
And
Bezos watching these sometimes.
yeah,
Jeff regularly tunes in. Hi, Jeff.
Yeah.
We'll get you on. We'll get you on later on down the line when you've grown your business a bit more. But Johnny's a good kid.
That leads me on to just the follow question from there is there, because you in this space, similar with property, right? There's a lot of people who sell how to do it, and I think we're all in agreement. I've got no problem with education at all, but it's obviously the potential very ambitious, overly ambitious claims to try to obviously sell a course as well. What would you honestly say, though, realistically, to two questions? So one is, was there a time where you genuinely lost money on a deal? Like, can you actually lose money? Have you lost money, and how did that happen? And the second thing is, if someone wanted to start and they had 10 grand, what would you set as realistic expectations for 1 to 2 years in terms of what they could get as a return if they did it well?
Sure. So have you lost money? I lose money on deals all the time, but that's why we're so diversified, and we're losing probably money on 10% of our stock. So, that's the thing about the beauty of being so diversified and having such a big product range. Because the price is a marketplace, and that price can crash at any time. Amazon retail can come on and start selling at cost price or below. You could have a newbie coming in and selling it at £5 below the actual listing price. You could have an oversupply of something. Someone's bought, a pan from Home Bargains, a Jamie Oliver pan, and everyone's jumped on that deal. And then you have 100 sellers, obviously, because there's so much supply and so much competition driving that price down. So you lose money all the time. And that's just the nature, right? And I'm sure there's property deals that you'll lose money on, but that's why you have a pipeline of so full that you make all the money on the 80%, right?
Well, I think if you were to draw an analogy there to property, and in terms of crowded market space, saturation, driving down price, eroding your margin, I'd say that's probably rarer in property, but you can have saturation issues in areas. If a big house basher's delivered 500 unit or 50 units and then you're delivering 20, then there's a competition at that local market. I think that would be the equivalent, but obviously not as common.
Yeah, I think it's definitely because yours is high volume and frequency is high. Like the average deal time for property, the cycle from acquisition, planning, and delivery and sale is it could literally be between anywhere between 2 to 4 years, depending on if PD, permitted development rights, are involved or not. So that's the average cycle of one deal. Whereas obviously with your cycle, it's it could all be done and dusted within 30 days. So those risks are definitely there, but you'll feel them a lot faster than we do. But yeah, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, and also we have lots of different channels, so we can spread that. Like, we only really lose money if it's stuck in like Amazon FBA. So maybe we have like Christmas stock that we haven't sold through. We're sort of like do some sort of crazy deal to get rid of them. And obviously, with us being in grocery, have stuff expiring all the time. So we have actually a clearance website, a clearance section on our website. So we're always getting a return on our products, where other sellers haven't got a clearance section. Obviously, they sell on Amazon, so they have to get rid of those. So we're always getting a return on our products. So if you started with 10K, what's like a realistic expectation? One of the benefits of being a beginner on Amazon is that you're under the VAT threshold. So what does that mean? Is that like, obviously you can sell goods at a 20% VAT, and obviously you're not paying for that VAT, right, on Amazon and not on the buy cost. So you have a competitive edge over more seasoned sellers, because the seasoned sellers are having to pay VAT, right? So you're immediately going to make more margin than seasoned sellers. So just keep that in mind, because obviously that's a big advantage, and you have that edge over seasoned people. And actually, one of the reasons I've done grocery is because it's 0% VAT. I think VAT is the killer of a lot of businesses. I don't like it, but that's another conversation. So if you imagine that your return on investment is 50%, and say like 80% you're making money on, that's 8, and so that's 8K that you put into stock. Obviously, just putting 8, you're not just going to put 8K, 10K all into stock, right? Because you're going to have software, staff, and just random expenses like monthly fees from Amazon. But let's just say we put all 10K into stock, and you have a 50% return on investment. I reckon you could probably turn around stock and get that money back in 60 days on average as a beginner, as long as you're buying the right stock. Which again, as you're a new person, you're probably not going to buy all the right stock. Some of it might be fluff. But say you're doing it okay, and you just happen to buy the right stock. 50% return on 10K is $5,000. Every 2 months, that could be sort of like a $2,500 gross margin, if that makes sense. If you're doing it really effectively, because you're making 5,000 gross on that sort of 10 grand invested into the marketplace, and then obviously you've got these other fees. So with 10 grand, you could maybe start making 1 to 2 grand a month, I'd say, and then obviously slowly build that up.
But would you say for them to do that, how much time in terms of like an average working week for them to do that off the bat? What would you realistically say the time involved in the early days is to get to that level of proficiency?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, you're not going to start on that proficiency, and you probably won't make that much from 10K, because obviously you're going to have to source the products. When you're beginning, you're going to have to prep the products. So, if you have a full-time job, unfortunately you're going to have to be working 5:30 till midnight or 1 a.m.
That's a real answer. Now, these are that was the answer I was expecting to hear as well, because it's just important people who are listening are very, we've talked about this before. If you've got a job to pay the bills, and you want to develop a side hustle into a side business, into a major business, you can't do that unless you're actually putting in tons of hours to get to that level of proficiency. Otherwise, they're going to just pick a product, sink 10 grand into it, and it's all going to go to the wall.
That's why I hate, like I always say, like, for the first 5 years of this business, 4 years, I put 100-hour weeks in every week, and that's not really sexy, is it? Doesn't really sell courses, if you am to say that. But I think, obviously, I know a lot of the business owners I know, and people who are very successful in their corporate jobs, I think all of them they all started with 100 hours plus weeks. I don't know anyone in business who started off working sort of less than that. So obviously you've got to put the grind in, you've got to give up your weekends, you've got to spend those nights packing the stuff that you've sourced and selling it to FBA. Fortunate of Amazon FBA is that once you send it off to Amazon, they kind of do it for you. But yeah, I mean, 10K is not a lot, and that's the thing. Like, obviously, with that 10K, then you can get credit cards and all that.
Well, the key principles are within that message, though. And I've only got one final question, and that is, what Jermaine said. What's your, what's your ambition? What are you trying to do? What's the goal? What do you want?
Oh, that's always a tough question, because I don't think my business is very sellable. The reason for that is like we have obviously contracts with brands and stuff like that, but like really we could potentially sell our systems and our software and stuff like that. So potentially it is sellable, but I don't think we're going to get a good exit really.
Do you not think you should be working on making it sellable? Because you could make that business sellable, couldn't you?
It's probably worthwhile you talking about the other thing that you're working on, Johnny.
Yeah.
Not obviously not in too much detail, but
We'll talk about that. Yeah. So it's sellable as in, but like until you get sort of big brand contracts, when you buy an FBA business or a business like mine, you're buying the contracts with the suppliers and the distributors, right? So the person I went to 2 days ago, he's looking to sell because he has operations in Europe, all throughout Europe, all the warehouses, and he has contracts with like Mars and Reckitt's and stuff like that, where he's able to sell a lot, and those contracts are worth a lot. So for us, obviously, it's going to be sellable because we're selling the systems, the team, the warehouse team. So I think it would be because you can just sort of come to my position and it will just sort of run itself. But the sort of multiples for Amazon business are never that good because you're just sort of reselling stuff. I guess I have like my own store, Shopify store. We're going to launch our own sort of seasoning and our own products and stuff like that, which will increase our sort of sellable rate.
Is that 100% accurate though? Because if you had a robust system and robust distribution, you've got those supplier agreements, you've got consistent revenue, you've got a team and staff and systems in place, it's kind of self-managed. Surely there'll be other sort of big sellers or big e-commerce people that go, look, you're doing X, Y, Z a year. It's kind of automated. You've got a team that runs the whole thing. I'll buy that 2 years multiple. 3 years multiple on profit or something. Does that happen quite a lot in this space? I imagine it would.
It happens more for private label, so people wanting to acquire a brand, right?
Okay, who has a specific niche or something,
has IP. They have IP as an intellectual property, which is their own sort of brand. Because I'm sort of reselling popular brands. Most people can sort of, not most people, but if you're established, you can go reach out to those distributors and potentially open an account. Where it becomes resellable is when you get those big contracts with like the Mars and the Cadbury and stuff like that. But yeah, you're right. People will come in and be like, your systems and your warehouse team is really impressive, and they want to just, that's definitely worth something.
Would you buy another one? Would you buy someone another, like, can you buy someone else to fold them into what you're doing with that? Is that something you'd look at?
I would buy brands for sure. Because for us, our main challenge is spending enough money on the right stock. That is really a difficulty because remember in the UK, you don't really have that much volume compared to like the US. Like the US Amazon market is 10x with less suppliers. So our biggest challenge actually is usually spending enough on the right stock. So we'd definitely buy a private label brand if it sort of fit our branding.
I'm being very disruptive today. I've got to shoot because yeah, I know. I'm just trying to there's so many stuff I need to get crammed in, and I'm very sorry. But John, I'm so interested. And like I said, I've got like 50 other questions, but very, very quickly before I shoot, because we diverse. What's where do you want your ambition level? Where are you trying to go to? I always find that quite fascinating.
Yeah, so I love software and systems. So for me, I want to get this business to 10 million and then netting $1 million a year in the next few years would be nice if I can get to that level of sort of cash flow, and then just sort of look into sort of different software and different tools. And I'm building my own like AI software and stuff like that as like a little side project and stuff like that.
That'd be like a software as a service to other providers that you look at, taking your knowledge, systemize. Yeah, okay, cool. And then the potential for that is massive. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just like creating products. I love this space because you can sort of go into private label, create your own brands. It's nice. It's nice having a distribution warehouse as well because obviously that opens up lots of different business ideas and business potential and lots of moats around it. So for me, it's keep on diversifying the business, building moats around it, buying sort of bolt-on businesses. But now it's just cash flowing so we can get to sort of $1 million a year, and then we can start actually acquiring other businesses, and that kind of sets me up.
Awesome. All right. Pleasure. Well, anyway, guys, very sorry. See you all soon. Yeah, likewise. Thanks, mate.
Let us know how you get on.
Good luck with your sale, mate. See you later. How you mentioned 10 mil rev, you're looking for 1 mil net. What's your current like GP and net profit? What do you look like right now? And does that get squeezed with volume like a sort of traditional business does?
So we're actually reaching a sort of maximizing our economies of scale in our warehouse and our current staff setup. So actually our net profit is increasing sort of every month actually as we grow our revenue. When 2-3 years ago, our net profit was probably around 5%, 4-5%. But as we grow our revenue, our warehouse management costs and our stock control and our rent is still the same. So we're just further diluting that cost. As our revenue grows, our net profit is going up. So yeah, right now we're doing about 4 to 5 million. If we do sort of pro rata, it's 5 million. Our gross usually ranges from 15 to 20%. I think last month our gross was 17, 18, I think it's 18% gross profit. And our net usually is around the sort of 7-8%. Usually you can take 10% off that.
If you could buy other brands, like you were saying before, with specific products, I'm guessing there you'll have more control on margin. So that would probably boost that entire margin. So there's a strategy in being able to acquire good brands, right, and fold them into your distribution channels.
Exactly. It's really just carrying good SKUs, right, and just selling them, having the systems to sell them over and over and over again. We already have the really good system. We have the really good distribution warehouse that can do lots of orders per day and do lots of B2C orders. Now it's just carrying more SKUs that have higher sales volume.
So we found from a business perspective and growth, there's when we're talking about like direct GP and NP, so gross profit and net profit, benefits of scale, so the economies of scale, it's not just directly linear because you have business overheads which do benefit from bringing in more revenue because it's optimizing an overhead that you have anyway that sometimes doesn't go up if you add more revenue or team, whatever it may be. What we've noticed in our surveying business is we then have to segregate pods, which a pod is a surveying manager, a lead surveyor, and then all the surveyors below them. So when you start breaking into that new, and let's say that's for an example, for us, it's £500,000 revenue to break into a new pod. That pod is actually really inefficient for the first 100, 200K, but then for the second 300, 400, 500K, it's really efficient. For Johnny, that will be probably the warehouse. So you'll reach capacity at your existing warehouse. Then you'll start losing money on the new warehouse until you get to critical mass at the new warehouse. But both those warehouses benefit from the overheads of the total business expense above. So you do have that economies of scale. So what I'm getting at is you have economies of scale running at different periods depending on what section of the business you're looking at. And it's quite complicated to go, right, when are we going to get that new, a good example of it is like an AA van. They didn't start out with millions of vans, and the second van they got, they were probably losing money on. And then the third van they're losing money on. But the more vans you get, or the more warehouses you get, or the more pods of surveying teams you get, the easier it is because your first team is now operating at like a completely efficient product cycle.
Yeah, I really love that concept, and I've explain that I've gone over that a few times, like with my sort of training a lot, how it doesn't just work linear. So for instance, the first steps to business, you might hire a virtual assistant, and that virtual assistant might cost £400-500 a month. So then you have to do enough revenue. So that's what, like say your net profit on Amazon is 10%. That means you got to do an extra $5,000 of revenue to pay for that staff, right? So but then you reach a certain points where they're maximized and buying the most amount of stock and then the most efficient, where they can sort of spend and bring in way more revenue than that. And then that gets really diluted as you do more sales. And then obviously the next step would be, like you said, you move into a warehouse. You might have a 3,000 square foot warehouse, but a lot of your shelf space, a lot of your pallet spaces are all empty. So you're not fully utilizing the square footage in the warehouse, which again, your net profit will be lower.
Johnny, for the business owners out there, because I find this super interesting. So let's just say you've started an Amazon retailing business in your lounge, and you're kind of buying those Spider-Man, whatever they are, and doubling your money on them, and you're making enough money. How do you know to grow a 3,000 square foot business that's going to be a 5 million turnover business? Because we forecast it in a spreadsheet, on a cash flow spreadsheet. So we go, right, at that point, we'll probably need this amount of staff, this amount of office people, this amount of fee earners, and then literally forecast like a 5-year forecast plan, and then figure it out from there. But how do you do that? Do you learn from other people that have done it? Do you just take it month by month and then navigate where you're going?
Yeah, so I think the key metric in our space is spend, is like how much spend are you doing per week? So your sort of natural progression as an Amazon seller or e-commerce seller would be your own living room, then you'd use a third-party 3PL. So you'll first delegate your prep to another company, because obviously prepping for 5 hours of an evening and sending a bunch of Fortune's Easter eggs off to Amazon isn't the most fun job, or some people actually might enjoy it. So the next step for that would be to delegate that across the 3PL. Then you need to do enough revenue where maybe your 3PL can't handle your volume, right? For us, we've got 3,000 square foot and it's just full. Maybe there is some 3PLs that can handle it, and there's an argument not to ever use a warehouse and just to keep the 3PL structure. But the problem, obviously, with using a 3PL is that you can't have your own custom systems. You don't have control of your stock. It's hard to do self-fulfill prime from that 3PL. So when you're using a 3PL, say your spend gets to a certain level where you're able to spend, say, 20 grand a week, £100,000 a month, you might look, well, you know what? I'm going to start my own warehouse, so I can start doing self-fulfill prime. I can start doing Shopify. I can start doing eBay. I can start doing TikTok. You need to have that confidence in your systems and the SKUs that you're buying, that if you get a warehouse, you can actually fill that place out, which is the most important thing. So I think you just need to be able to get to a position where you know that you can reach that spend budget you have as an Amazon seller, so you can keep your warehouse team busy. That's really the most important thing. A busy staff will perform way better than when it's not busy. When it's not busy, they're going to be like very relaxed, chilling, talking. If it's busy, they're just on it because they have to be. So then your staff cost goes way down. So you just need to go into a space and know that you can completely maximize that space and have your staff in there, and they will be very, very busy. Because a lot of people get a warehouse and they're just standing around selling stuff to FBA, and it's all very relaxed because there's no sort of deadline. So as soon as you start doing self-fulfill prime, there is a cutoff time and there is a deadline, and you have to keep to certain metrics to have the prime badge on Amazon. So your team have to send those stuff off. So if you're doing 1,000 orders a day, they're always getting pushed throughout the week. So to answer your question in simple terms, it's, can I spend X amount on good stock?
Which is crazy because I went on holiday with Johnny a few months ago, and I was like, what's your biggest challenges? And he said, I'm not spending enough. And I've never heard a business owner say that as their biggest challenge, because it's always, I'm not saving enough or creating enough revenue. But I mean, obviously, that's the root problem of the revenue, right? If you've got the stock, you can sell it.
There must be a large portion of a market you're missing out on in terms of, if I'm a consumer, I'm looking for a product. Traditionally, a lot of people do go to Amazon, but there seems to be an emerging trend. And I say this specifically because of behaviors that are changing in London, but London is very efficient and useful and convenient. People are turning to like Deliveroo and Uber to order like these things because they can literally come to your door in 5 minutes. But you, I'm guessing, don't have a direct route to market to be on those channels, but you could if you had like a bricks and mortar distribution presence in like a busy West London postcode. Is that something on the roadmap? Is there an addressable market there that's worth putting that kind of investment into?
It could be, but I always have the issue of sort of focus, right? And if your eggs are in too many baskets, then I don't know what the quote is, but you're never going to really excel at one thing if you're spread across like trying to do 5 different things.
Oh, I suppose it's kind of like the difference between, I completely agree with what you're saying, but I'm just thinking of that difference is like, how you got like a Sainsbury's local convenience store, they can charge a higher margin because of the convenience than the bigger supermarket down the road. Would there be a similar correlation? You could probably charge 10-20% higher for a convenience product on UberEats than you could like FBA fulfillment.
I've never looked into that model, but just from personal experience of buying from UberEats, obviously you're paying more than you would if you actually went into the shop. But I think that's just almost like a completely different model, because now you're dealing with transport, right? Now it's more of a transport and labor intensive, and I
Yeah,
think
I
it's
mean-
completely different.
The Americans are absolutely obsessed with like DoorDash. Like we went to stay in a almost like an Airbnb near the sea in California, and it amazed me that we were sat in a room of 10 people and they all individually ordered DoorDash individually off their phone app. So it got to a point where there was like 5 delivery drivers all delivering one person a crate of beer, one person a pizza and a bottle of wine. And I'm like, a British person would have been like, right, let's do an order, everyone. Let's be forgiving to the planet and the efficiency of this. Here's my phone, order what you want, and then we'll split it all up after. But they're just so used to just getting people just run their errands for them and the convenience factor that it might have to more transition over here. But I can't. It's weird. Us Brits, we have like this innate, just like almost like a little bit tight. Don't really concern too much. Like we will do things that are really inconvenient because it makes sense.
Or because that's how we've done it for a while. And it's like, yeah, just do that. Keep doing that. Nice and easy. I do think there must be scope though in having like, let's say I'm just ideating here because it's interesting because your TAM, if you like, for what you're selling is restricted to distribution channels, right? But if there's like a culture shift which has happened in America and people do start going more to Deliveroo, Uber Eats and things like that, you're kind of missing out on that marketplace. So is there not merit in having like, it doesn't have to be like a high street like prime piece of real estate. It could be a back of warehouse thing just in like a busy postcode where a Deliveroo driver, on their moped can show up to a location and you have like a store clerk that's just got an abundance of XYZ merchandise that sells really well locally in that way, convenience products, nappies, all that kind of shit that people need like that. And you then distribute from your warehouse in wholesale to your own outlets. And then you're on those channels as well. Not bricks and mortar traditional retail, but literally like a mini fulfillment center that's kind of like subsidiaries around a busy city. Do you know what I mean?
I think this is why it's nice speaking to other business owners because I've never even looked at that model or even considered it. I don't know the numbers. I don't know the complications of doing that. It'd be interesting to look at how that would work.
I can guess the problem already with that is you're essentially when you pay someone like on DoorDash or Deliveroo or UberEats, you're paying the delivery costs, right? So the infrastructure of that person for that time to deliver those items. And I think the problem you'll encounter with that is if you had all the top 50 FMCGs, so fast moving consumer goods, like bread, milk, butter, nappies, toilet roll, all of that stuff that people are buying really frequently. The problem you have is at the moment, if you do that on Uber Eats, you're paying the same price as if you walk down to Tesco's yourself. You're just paying someone to do the walking. So you can't charge a premium for the product, but you're charging a premium for the service. So what your face is, you'll be selling the same product the next day to 1,000 people across Amazon, but you haven't got to get it to them within the next hour. So it's kind of like higher expectations, but same margin for you on the product. And the next problem is they want breadth of product. They want to go, and we want a pepperami because I fancy one, and I want to buy a Colgate toothpaste, but I don't want that flavor. I want the flavor that I get in Tesco's. So I think you'll struggle with breadth of market because they do just want to get anything.
Yeah, it'd have to be like AA batteries, AAA batteries, nappies, things that people just go, I fucking need this now. And it's just like there. Because you're right, variety would absolutely kill that model. Like it would kill that model. It's interesting though. Distribution is just interesting in your kind of business.
Again, I think our whole strategy we did sort of 3-4 years ago was going to sort of stuff that isn't really stocked in the Sainsbury's and the Cardos because there's just such competition from those sort of stores. So we obviously went into World Foods, which they have little sections of, but we just went full at World Foods. That probably gives away my store, but I'm sure people maybe look it up anyway. So that was our play. The other thing that Amazon were doing as well is that there's a thing on Amazon called the buy box. So when you go to Amazon, do you guys know what the buy box is? When you click add to basket, you go on an Amazon listing and you click add to basket. That add to basket is called the buy box because you can just one click and buy. So what Amazon were doing was they were comparing the price from a listing on Amazon and then they were looking at stuff like Ocado. And they're looking at those sort of digestive biscuits we're selling for £1.50 on Ocado. And if you weren't priced at £1.50 on Amazon, they would then suppress that listing and take away the buy box. So when consumers and customers went on Amazon, there was no option to click add to basket or buy now. You had to go to like other sellers, which would obviously kill off listings. So basically, like, there's loads of lawsuits against Amazon for this. Amazon are like suppressing all these listings from all these major retailers. And obviously with Amazon, there's also delivery cost, but they didn't even account for that. So my strategy was actually, you know, I'm going to buy stuff that you don't buy from major retailers. I'm going to start importing stuff and be more of a specialty grocery seller. So I don't really run into as many problems as that. But that was like a big killer for a lot of people sort of 3-4 years ago now.
Well, speaking of killers, how's tariffs affected you? And how do you see that sort of playing out?
I know a lot of businesses, a lot of big businesses are going to close overnight pretty much because of this. Like I've heard through the grapevine, some of like the big printer companies are going to close down for that because obviously, and anyone who sort of does private label from China to America, their business is sort of just kind of closed overnight. And that sort of shock inflation, shock pricing has just killed them off, right? Because there's no one that you can really just turn to from China who do such good quality at that price from China, right? So it's gonna really be a struggle for a lot of big businesses and a lot of businesses. But it seems like it's like just my general thoughts is that it seems fair because it's obviously reciprocal proportional tariffs, as in if England, when we import containers from America, we're paying tariffs on those goods, right? We're paying import duty. So it's only fair that America also charge the same, right? Reciprocal. So I always think it's actually fair. And what's quite interesting is that he says that it's going to save, well, the math on that is that it's going to save 750 billion a year. And they're going to use that 750 billion a year. So for anyone earning under £150,000, $50,000 in America, they won't have to pay any income tax, which is obviously huge. And then Trump will probably win a third term because of that. So sort of like the long-term play on this is like really good for Americans when then more people have more buying power. So it's going to then boost the economy. But obviously, for big companies who are buying their printers from China and all the stuff like the American companies, China.
Lots of beautiful Chinese.
They're in a lot of trouble, and their business they're fucked. Yeah, and there's no way around it.
You know what you just said, like where you were like, there's a lot of FBA sellers who are relying on Chinese goods and imports, and they're like kind of fucked. That's basically China's economic model. So like China is fucked, and they've already like they're cutting the price of the yen to compete and to keep it low, which just create a bit of a problem for America, but it creates a bigger problem for China long term. And that's been their model, is to fight against by just cheapening but buying the dollar and trading off against the yen by keeping low on export. But I think the interesting thing about what Trump's doing is he's devolving the globalists and these big elite international companies that have taken monopoly market shares, colluded with regulators, made it really hard in Europe to regulate. He's basically gone, no, going to stick a fucking nuclear bomb in that just by tariffing to the biggest consumer market in the world, which is basically going to level the playing field and should bring down costs over time. But it's going to be, I think your kind of business, if you were set up in America reliant on those foreign imports, you'd be just going, fuck, we are fucked. You'd have to find you'd have to find so many alternatives quickly, wouldn't you, to fill up your shelves?
I mean, even Amazon retail have cancelled loads of their orders from China. So sort of like the Amazon Basics and stuff like that. That's going to they're going to stop selling that in America as well. It's that big of a deal. So it's just changing the game. And like you said, like it's going to really disrupt the big corporations. And you always wonder, why has it been like that for so long? Why has it been so long that, you know, America have been charged these tariffs, but they've never charged them back? And, you know, it seems fair. Like it seems like the reasonable thing is like, you charge me this. Okay, cool. I'm going to charge you that back. It seems normal. But again, like you said, these big corporations were doing all that arbitrage, right? So they're buying.
Well, it stemmed from the unions, so that the labor unions in America basically took too much power against the companies, demanded too much, wanted all these pay increases. This is going back to like 70s and 80s. and then big companies, and then government changed different policies, and it allowed big companies to offshore manufacturing, control the margin. They got more control in these developing nations, and so the unions basically forced companies to globalize in that way, and therefore take away American jobs. And then the incentive there was to keep tariffs low, because the big companies work in collusion with the government to keep tariffs low. They'll lobby the new fucking administration that's coming in to go, don't fuck with those tariffs because that's our new business model. Whereas Trump's come in as an outsider and gone, yeah, fuck all that. This is about the American people, not about these international globalist companies. And that's just I don't think the average consumer understands at all what's happened there. And that's like a big change to the global order, isn't it?
Yeah. So like clothing companies like Gymshark and Nike in America, surely they're just going to, how do they, I guess the cogs on clothing is so cheap, right? Maybe like their margins are already pretty good. So they'll just decrease their marketing, I imagine. It's more the companies where the cogs of like printers and stuff like that, where the cost of goods is a bit higher, when that doubles or 125%, that's where the problem is. But stuff like clothes, where it's just so cheap anyway, and all their costs is going to marketing, they'll just reduce their marketing spend, I guess, right?
And also just onshoring manufacturing in America. Like they have to onshore to produce the same kind of level of goods that they can in China. But that's going to be a process.
They say it's still cheaper to from China than go with America now because it's so expensive onshore. And like the quotes people are getting right now are like 3x China or 4x China, where you might as well with the tariffs still use China.
It will take time, but we've offshored all our fucking manufacturing. Like we now can't produce steel to protect our country. And like all these things that are just like so stupid for like national security, consumer, like best interest, competitive marketplace, and I think Trump's doing the right thing there, but there's going to be a lagging effects for these companies to then re-onshore and create a competitive manufacturing supply chain so that people aren't siloed into only one like distribution channel or one producer who can then charge a crazy margin, because supply and demand, isn't it? So it's going to take time for that to flush out. But I think when it does, and when it rebalances, your kind of business is going to like flourish in that with more options locally rather than having to deal with a China. There should then be actually more margin to be had, but also more competition. So it's going to be like an interesting marketplace.
It's still growing sort of 10% a year. So, and the other good thing about sort of selling on Amazon is that the actual sellers are dropping off as well. So a lot less competition and the marketplace keeps growing. So obviously that's really helped with our growth as well. There's just less competition. I think obviously during COVID, a lot of people were doing all these different businesses like FBA, crypto, NFTs, but most people don't stick around with those sort of businesses. I just stuck around and I'm still doing it, and that's why I'm making money. But where people don't make money is they just give up too quick. Basically, any of like the courses that Andrew Tate sells, they're the courses that people get attracted to, but only like spend like 1 or 2 months on. Because I'm sure there's still people making money from NFTs today, right? Like there's someone who's stuck at that is probably making good money, but people just don't stick around long enough.
What's your take on the whole course market, the guru market? What do you make of it? Because obviously there's good and bad actors. I don't think education's bad at all. It's just there's a lot of exploitation that happens there.
Yeah. So I think my problem 10 years ago was I'd look at people and be like, oh, they're not actually very good at property, but they're selling this course. Oh, they don't really have any successful property portfolios, but they're selling these courses. I think really good. But the way I've changed now is I'm looking at these people and be like, actually, I don't really care if they're good at property. They're just really good. I'm looking at how good they are at the marketing and how good they are at the business size.
Not from a paying customer of that course, though. You're just looking at how well they're playing the game.
Yes. So I've changed my mindset and I haven't got a negative thing about them, because I used to be snake oil, not successful. Now I'm actually appreciating that their business and marketing side. So I think Samuel Leeds is the prime example. I know the guy from like 10 years ago, and obviously, hopefully he doesn't sue me for defamation, but he was selling off his property portfolio back then because he realized that there's a lot more money to be made in training. So he was selling off all his like shitty little HMOs and shitty little properties. So he didn't really have that much of a portfolio to himself, but he knew that every time he did one of those property days, he was making $100,000. But I used to like be like, like snake oil salesman, not very good at property, and obviously it was in the news. that he's not very legit at property. But now I kind of look at him now and actually respect him as a amazing content creator, an amazing community builder, an amazing marketer. So I've kind of just changed my mindset, and as a business owner, and being like, obviously you're going to get people like that, and I don't recommend going this course. I don't think it's much better going on your course because you guys are actually doing the stuff. So actually anyone who's taking it seriously, don't go to him, go to you. But his content game and marketing game, as us business owners, that's what you got to look towards. How's he selling the training? How's he built such a big audience? How's he now interviewing like Andrew Tate? It's all really, really impressive because he's just some geezer from, he's just a normal dude, isn't he?
Say in Sam's defense, in full disclosure, I'm quite pally with Sam. So I've got a little bit of bias, but also when I got into the industry, Sam was one of the first people I engaged with, not for courses, but I had a big social media following. And he just responded to my Instagram message when I was getting into property. And I think the benefit of a Sam in our kind of industry is, yes, he's a wicked salesman. But that's basically, people like Sam are great salesmen, wicked marketers. And essentially, he's the entry point for property people. If you want to get into the space, then if you came and spoke to me or Jack and you were getting into property, I think it would be a waste of, there'd be a lot more time we'd have to spend because of our bandwidth. We don't have the same infrastructure as Sam has. So our bandwidth just isn't quite there to take someone from 0 to say even 10 within like a short period. We're better with people who've already got some experience, some understanding, and then helping them scale, establish like a strategy and things like that. Whereas Sam's great for, you want to get into property and you want the 101 understanding and knowledge. Here's my course. How do you price that? Is that 10, 12 grand's worth of value? Well, if you go on to do one deal and you'll make that back instantly. So the pricing, I think, is where people get annoyed about a Sam Leeds or other people in the space, because they go, how can you charge that? And I think that's where the market needs to find its pricing. And then I don't think people would be that bothered about Sam. But also I think he's done a good job at actually over time building a service offering that works really well for his niche avatar, that is people getting into the space, and it's introducing more people to the property space. But there's then the caveat of sales tactics and other things over time, which like any business, he'd have made his mistakes and gone, yeah, I probably shouldn't do that again. Should clean that up, make this more professional.
Yeah. I mean, like, I guess you look at TikTok and there's a lot of these course sellers I know people who have never sold on Amazon selling Amazon courses, because they're like, again, you got to respect the game and be like, they've just researched and learned about Amazon for another course and then just resold that because they're good marketers and they're good salespeople. So I think, I just think I've just had a mindset shift of, rather than looking at the negatives and being so like, oh, snake oil, and just looking at the positive aspects and like, what can I actually learn from that person? And I think Samuel Leeds is a prime example where very easy to hate because of the way he charges his courses, like you were saying, but very someone you can probably look up to and be like, fuck, he's done a really good job on growing his audience and building.
Yeah, to be fair, mate, I was the exact same as you. Like, I've just always hated the idea of training. I'm like, if those who can do, those who can't teach, and it's just like that mentality. But eventually, you do realize actually these guys who've managed to scale progressive property are the same. They've scaled some serious like sales and marketing businesses that tether on a property product. They could sell any kind of product, right? But
turn of the century there at the moment. I feel like the property educational space is, even though progressive are still active, I think they're on the decline. I think PIN network is on the decline. I think Samuel Leeds is on the decline. I think there's forging a new path for people that are better in the social media space, probably less sales and marketing, people coming a little bit more attuned to it. It's a more mature market. That run to the back of the room 499 has been around for so long. I feel like there's a new turn of the century of, people that can pave the way in Aspire.
networks.
Huh?
Ground up network, baby.
Ground up network, please. But yeah, I mean, Daniel Priestley preaches that any business should have a training arm, which is the same for Johnny. Johnny does what he says he does, and he teaches what he says he does, and has two revenue streams. One's from product selling, another's from training people how to product sell. Back in the old school way, people used to hide their secrets. They used to say, well, I'm not going to share that information. I'm not going to tell you how I've got that customer, this client, this process.
Until they retire, and then they become a consultant, and then they give away all the secrets, which is kind of the same thing, isn't it? It's just an age-old practice. Yeah.
Should we move on to ADHD and dyslexia, because Johnny and I shared a house, and we were both dyslexic, and I've definitely got something, and Johnny's been reading into a lot about ADHD. So I don't know if it's self-diagnosed or
Self-diagnosed for now, because it's like I might go private and get a proper. But yeah, I think I've got ADHD. Very certain I've got ADHD. Yeah.
I mean, I remember sharing a house with Johnny. I'd go into his room at like 11 p.m. at night and be like, right, I'm off to bed now, mate. See you tomorrow. And I'll then go to bed for 11 hours, or like fudging around, getting to bed, brushing my teeth, going to sleep, getting up, waking up, having a shower, going into his room, and he'd still be doing the same thing as he was doing when I left him 12 hours later. And at that point, I was like, he's definitely got something.
Yeah.
What would you go? What's your lucky down?
With ADHD, you just struggle to do things that you don't enjoy. So that's why a lot of people with ADHD really struggle in school, because they just can't focus. I think how it works is you basically have like a busy mind. It's really hard to sort of focus on just one thing unless you're sort of, you love that thing. So for me, stuff like systems and coding and all those sort of things, I just obsess over. And me building a system, I can stay there for sort of 14 hours in a row and just not even leave the seat and just carry on working. I think when I was younger, like sort of 13, 14, I'd play video games for like 16 hours straight. Before that was actually sport, like football. I'd play football for pretty much any free time I had would be football. So it's sort of like a addictive personality, and also just a real struggle to concentrate on anything else, because my mind could never really stop. The way my girlfriend sort of puts it is that I'm never like fully present.
Yeah, we talk about this on the podcast a lot. Yeah. I think we all suffer from that same issue. Mrs. going, you're not in the room. You're not in the room. You're in the room, but you're not in the room.
Yeah. So she said like we've never really had a full holiday. Like went to the Maldives and stuff like that on points and stuff. And like, I was there, but like, 20% of my brain is still thinking about business. It's thinking about how my sales are, what can I improve? And I think it's just having a busy mind where it's really hard to sort of decompartmentalize work with everything else in everyday life. So I think for me, I've really, it explains my life. Like sometimes I'd be quite impulsive with things I say, saying stupid things that I'm like, oh, fuck, I didn't mean to say that. That's probably something to do with ADHD. Why I also had laser focus on some things, but some things I just couldn't concentrate on. Like I'm doing like a million things at once, and I just could never really fully focus on things. But I think it's really good to get that diagnosis as a business owner, because then what you can do is you can sort of build around that sort of skill or deficit. As in with ADHD, you can actually turn that into a superpower because you can concentrate on one thing that you love for a long period. But understanding that I love systems and coding means that my next step in the business would probably be getting something like a commercial director who's going to go, do all the sales calls and call loads of people and actually get pride over that. Because even though I can do that, I don't enjoy it. It doesn't make me like, it's not something I can just consistently do, right? With my training business, it's just me right now, and we've lost our business development manager. There's some issues there. She's not working for the company anymore. So for me, like making content and going to like speak to customers and stuff like that, that's more not really my thing either. So like I've learned that I need that sort of like number two or other person. This is actually quite recently, who's going to sort of do the things that I don't enjoy doing, because I'm probably not going to do it to 100% compared to someone else. So you really learn about yourself and how you hire around yourself, like building that C-suite and building that management team. You understand that I'm only really going to do things well if I love it. That's another thing. Just do things that you enjoy. Yeah. What's your experience? Experiences, guys?
I would say like all the ththings you've described there, I've always had as well, just a crazy laser focus on given things. And then other things just like, I'm not interested, don't even want to spend the time of day on it. And I don't know if, I think I'm quite big on this diagnosis stuff, and that I just think the world's gone a bit crazy on diagnosing and kind of siloing us into given labels that maybe do sum up a part of our character. But I just think people are so different that I think what's really happened is nowadays there's so much more you can spend attention on that you have no choice but to compartmentalize. And I think that compartmentalizing, particularly if you're then a business owner, that's then like sticking it on steroids, because you're not only compartmentalizing to your interests, you're compartmentalizing to your motives as well, which is, I need to make money. I need to like stop wasting time. And I think if you've got those predispositions of potential ADHD, which I would just say is you've got slightly more energy or focus than other people, and then you then double down on that with a world of distractions, a world of opportunities, and you're a business owner, I just think it can exacerbate what might have been a minor thing in your character trait, but now is like taken to the limit. And I think it's actually something you got to be really careful of. Stuart is a good example of this, because Stuart's definitely got fucking ADHD, like beyond diagnosis. Stuart is the most chatty, high energy, high octane person ever. And he's probably got ADHD, but he manages to balance his work life quite well with his family life. And I think, yeah, so it doesn't actually affect him negatively at all. He can spend time with his kids on the weekend, loves spending time with his kids. And then he's a dogged businessman building a great business. I think if you find balance, you probably find that the ADHD is more of a symptom of working on your business with these character traits and being just a hard worker. And actually, if you step back and you did kind of find that having kids might be the way to do it, it gives you another distraction. Maybe you'll find that actually it's not ADHD in the way that it's actually diagnosed. It's just that you're laser focused here, and then you need to be able to kind of turn it off over here. Unless you're Dorian. Dorian's our special one on the podcast. He's definitely got something going on. He can't. He's always bounced off the walls.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with all that. And interestingly, I mentioned in a podcast the phrase spectrum. Like, even if you don't have ADHD, you're on a spectrum. The spectrum is like full glance. You're one end or another, and it goes in all different directions. And what Johnny's really getting at is like leaning into your strengths, which we talk about quite a lot. And I completely agree with you. I feel like whatever you have, it's all about how, you're learning, your interest, your delivery, your focus. And this world is a lot about being resourceful, and sometimes that's resourcing your own skills into certain areas and resourcing other people's skills into other people's areas. And for me, it was more of a turning point where when I was at school, and exactly like you say, Johnny, when I was being taught something that I didn't enjoy, it was almost near impossible to get me to absorb information or enjoy to absorb information. And at school, I was constantly like, why am I so bad at this? Why can't I do what that student's doing or that kid's doing? And then I came out into the real world and I was like, fuck, I'm way better at this. I'm way better at being autonomous with my own things that I like doing, and being like, today I'm going to get up and go do this. And then that whole day was so much easier to going to school or whatever. And I found that at school it was like sports, but definitely like, you touched on something there, Ryan, with business ownership. The crazy thing about business ownership is you can get obsessed with something like gaming, like sport, but it actually can make you money. So it can give you everything. It can give you flexibility. It can give you money. It can give you future wealth. It can give you income. It can give you capital growth. Whatever it can give you. But it's amazing that you can. The superpower for us is you can actually go feet in first into something. So I've seen Johnny get obsessed with things before his business, but it wasn't making him money. He was just really good at gaming, or really good at table tennis, or really good at saying the wrong things. But when it came actually into business, it's refreshing to see, especially a friend that you've seen struggle in certain environments, double down on something and really find their thing. And Roger Hamilton, billionaire, always refers to it as finding your flow, which I completely agree. He's all about finding your flow, and that can mean so many different variations. If you're an artist, your flow is going to be very different to mine. If you're a musician, like Rye, you've probably got a good example when you found your flow in music, but your flow in music might have actually been all the production side and the marketing side and bringing the band back together. So yeah, just the way we've segregated from ADHD into business is like finding your flow, and everyone's flow is different, and whatever floats your boat.
Yeah, I was just going to say, they say 30% of business owners have ADHD. So there's definitely something that's...
Well, there was actually, interestingly to that, there was actually a study, I think it was Harvard or Stanford, where they tried to distinguish the most common similarities between the 1% of business owners, that the majority of really successful business owners, but the 1% of the world that make the most money. And it was three things. It was, so this isn't this isn't exclusively or unexclusively, but this is the most common traits that they could pull together. One was that their potential parents or their mentors were business owners. So if someone didn't have a parent and they were, housed by their grandparent and they were a business owner, is number one. And that, I think that all drives around like asking why, fixing problems, and being able to go with your gut and having support for that. Two was that you have a learning or some form of disability that enables you to be really good at some things and really bad at others. So you hire people. So my dad is a perfect example. Can't read or write, really successful business owner. Guess who was the first person he hired? Admin. So he's out doing high value money tasks. He didn't have a choice but to hire someone to paper chase and hire an admin. And then point number three is trauma. They've been through some form of childhood trauma and they've had to overcome that. And those two are actually, or three actually, are very similar, because you've likely been through difficult months if your parents or family are in business ownership, and you're likely been through trauma if you've got a learning difficulty and have had to adapt. And it's all about building resilience early on. So you can problem solve, you can narrow down into your strengths, and then you can basically deal with problems when they hit you. You don't get upset and go, oh, because you've been dealing with those problems. They're the three top areas.
You got to be if you develop resilience early age and then you go into business later in life, I think you're just set up perfectly to take on, because building a business is basically just solving problem after problem after problem after problem after problem and staring into the abyss. It's like, and if you've not developed resilience, I just don't think you could last. You just can't in business, can you?
Yeah. I think that's like the difference between a 5-year in a business and a 1-day-old business. You've had 5 years of solving problems every day and solving bottlenecks every day, that you just become more and more mature and better and better and better. And that's where your margins go up. And that's why I always say, like, you just got to stick around at that business, whether it's NFT, crypto, property, Amazon, and you probably will make it, right? It's like you say. But it's interesting. If I look at sort of my family, I've got 3 brothers. My parents, one of my brothers and my dad, we're all business owners, and we're all very similar, cut from the same cloth, as in we've all got dyslexia, and we've all probably got ADHD, and we've also all business owners. My other 2 brothers work corporate jobs and are so different to us. They did really well in school, and they're really good in their corporate jobs. So yeah, I think it's very genetic, isn't it? I don't know if your parents, like Jack was saying, those 3 reasons. I think it's very, it's all about genetics of what you'll make up of.
My mum's a nutcase. She's like off the wall, like with energy. And I know that I get a character trait from her. My dad's laser focused and just works. He does nothing but work. That's just how he loves life. He just works. I think you combine the two of like workaholic and then nutcase, and you can have a nice creative bloom of things. She is a bit of a nut. It is interesting though, talking about the just to close out, because it's very true, and Elon Musk's just the epitome of it, and so are other billionaires, Larry Page, Sergey Brin. These guys aren't normal. They're not like
Elon. He's like one of the weirdest blokes in the world.
They've got a tism, and that tism gives them an edge where others may want to prioritize family life and like enjoying themselves a bit more. They'll just dogged work and work and work. Maybe a bit of a sociopathic trait.
100%. So like most of the successful business owners that we don't hear about have got a business to a point, capitalized on that wave, sold out and gone quiet and sat behind, iron walls where that business has now moved into corporate hands. It's the sadistic weirdos like Elon, like Mark, that have to prove a point. The Mark Zuckerberg got offered to be bought out for like the most value that had ever traded in a business sale ever. And his board tried to turn the decision on his hand, and he got rid of them all and carried running the business as it is. Like, that is obsessive. And you only get to that point if you are that way.
Well, he said, like, what else am I going to do? I love building Facebook and I love building a social media platform. So if I sold, what else am I going to do? And I think he said he would just build another one. Yeah.
Yeah. What a podcast. That was good. Diving into a completely different vertical of business this week for our listeners. Hopefully that was interesting. If you like this kind of format, then we'll bring on more guests as well. And I'm sure we'll bring Johnny back when he's at his 10 mil target. See how he's getting on there.
How can people find you on platforms or your educational platform too?
So we have a pretty big Facebook community. It's beyond the buy box. So we've got about 4,000 sellers in there. We have a YouTube channel, which is our podcast. Those are the two main channels. We've got a TikTok under the same Beyond the Buy Box. So everything is Beyond the Buy Box.
I like that. It's a cool name. Cool name there. No worries, Johnny. Thank you for coming on, mate. And yeah, for all of our listeners as well, we release these episodes every Thursday, 5:30 a.m. Spotify and YouTube. Make sure you subscribe, share this with anyone who you think may find it useful. We're trying to offer as much free value as possible. And big love. 52. We're not going to celebrate it because Stu's not here. We'll celebrate it next week. But thank you. If you've been watching for the last year, massively appreciate. Big love. See you next week.
Roundup sound. Ooh, yeah. Real estate deal. We lay